There is a story in Washington brewing, and it could impact millions of workers nationwide. Joining me right now is our friend Ted Jenkin, the CEO of Oxygen Financial. Ted, we are talking about the Federal Trade Commission's proposal to get rid of non-competes, meaning that employers could not make employees sign them. So let's talk about this and why is the FTC doing this and how prevalent are these non-competes?
Well, Jeff, good to see you. Look, they're very prevalent across America. There's some 30 million Americans, it's estimated, that have some kind of non-compete in their contract. This ranges from hairdressers on Main Street in America to engineers that work for Fortune 500 companies. And the challenge is, even when you sign a non-compete, less than 10% of the people can negotiate any of the clauses whatsoever in a non-compete. So basically, 90% of Americans basically don't read it and they sign it, or they read it and they got to sign it anyway. And so, you know, whether you work for a small employer these days or you work for a Fortune 500 company, it pretty much seems that they're saying, look, if you don't sign this non-compete, we're just simply not going to hire you on the job. And that stops a lot of people, Jeff, from getting a job, in some cases in their city, in some cases in their state, and sometimes across the United States of America. It's just, to me, it's ridiculous at this point.
Yeah, it seems like it's from another generation, and it seems like it's from 70, 80 years ago, and it's just kind of been held in place. What is the difference between non-compete and non-solicit then?
So I think this is really the important point that most people have to understand, and why I think this will probably end up in Congress, because a non-solicit, if you think about it, makes a lot of sense. You can't work at a company and then all of a sudden leave and take your clients or take other employees that work for the organization or take the intellectual property of an organization. But a non-compete, it only makes sense in my mind if you own a coffee shop in Main Street. Well, you can't go build a coffee shop on the other side of Main Street. But if you work in any kind of job, it could be TV, it could be radio, it could be a financial advisor, you could be an engineer for a company, and your company tells you a non-compete means that you can't get a job within 50 miles of where this office is located, or 100 miles of where this office is located, is just insane. You're basically saying to somebody, if you want to get a job, what you do, you got to leave the state or work somewhere else in the country. It just doesn't make sense.
So the benefit of doing away with these clauses for somebody watching right now, wondering about this, who's not impacted by these, and why would companies balk at it? That's sort of a two-headed question for you there.
Well, look, I mean, first of all, it stops suppressing wages. People can go earn a fair wage and they can get a job quickly. So a lot of times it can hamper people's overall cash reserve. It increases innovation. People can start new companies. Just because you learn something as a company doesn't mean that you can't start another company doing something similar. You can't take all the intellectual property, but it lets entrepreneurs start small businesses if they want to do it all across our country, which creates more jobs. The reason that employers are going to balk at this is because they know most people don't have the legal means to read it when they sign it, and they don't have the legal means to fight it when they leave the company. So you know what people do, Jeff? They move on. They leave the city, they leave the state. In some cases, they can't even work in the United States of America. So companies love this because they know people have that fear that if they compete against this, they may be in a legal battle. And most people just don't want to do that.
So what kind of timetable are we looking at? Is that going to be addressed politically this year, do you think?
Well, I do think it's going to happen at some point this year, if it happens at all, but I think it will get out of the FTC's hands. It will end up in Congress, and hopefully they'll either alter the language or they'll basically say that there are only restraints on what a non-compete should be, and not this sort of universal language, what it is today, which is ambiguously ambiguous, Jeff, in a lot of contracts. That's what it is.
Yeah, no kidding. Ted Jenkin, the CEO of Oxygen Financial. As always, thanks a lot, Ted.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.